how do we stop people who are living in technologically aided, decentralized communities from just becoming a bunch of gooners and just gooning all day in their goon cave?
Wireheads.
Yeah, wireheads, gooners, whatever you want to call it. Because, like, freedom, from what I understand, is also supposed to be freedom from desire. Freedom for desire overtaking you and just making that, an endless part of your entire day, unless you have to survive, in which case you're not going to think about gooning anymore. But that's the other, descent of mankind that could possibly happen if we have really cushy technology that basically means we don't have to do anything.
I don't know. I believe that humans have an innate desire to want to create and want to, live a life of fulfillment, live a life of, not to say people are the same. Of course, there's a huge diversity, which is why we should also want and really celebrate different ways for people to find, what's most fulfilling to them. But I think there is something to be said that the drive for creativity and the disdain for monotony. I mean, why not have technology that reduces the monotony of rote labor, and we can spend more time focused on creating, more culture, more, everything.
I think we did that the last 20 years and it didn't work. I'm sorry to say this, but we created the internet where almost at zero cost, we mass produced user-generated content, and we're sick of it. Why? Because it's all mediocre. So,
but why? The question is...
No, wait a second. I think you're naive. Here, to be honest. Yes, I am a proponent of protopianism. I'm a proponent of creativity. I'm a proponent of a new symbolic class that can outshine boring, dead academia and do arts in fantastic ways. I'm a member of the intellectual deep web, where Lev and G are involved as well. And we're all about...
No, we're beyond those grifters. Don't worry.
Deep web, not dark web.
Okay.
Deep web, not dark web. Good.
No, the dark web died and the deep web survived because we killed the father. So the intellectual deep web is very much... The dark renaissance will happen, but it's a small elite that actually do that. I think, to be honest, Arash, to working class people, I think to have a contributive role in society, say go to work, even if it's monotonous, they don't care. But to have a contributive role is absolutely fundamental, or else they kill themselves. That's why they have babies. That's why they have families. That's why they go to work. And unless we figure that out for the masses, I think we're just sitting here being snobbish middle-class people saying that, we should all be creative and make more culture. Well, we've overproduced culture, and we're going to overproduce.
That's true. We're suffocating with meaning. Yeah.
We have so much junk culture out there. We can't stand more culture. We're overfed with culture. That's not the response of where we're going next. But on the other hand, Marcus will keep us all busy because we will not be able to afford to live in kolchoses or kibbutzes or whatever. It's not going to happen.
Right, but this sort of overwhelmingness of culture, right, is drowning out the real diversity, I think, of perspectives that people have, and it's part of like you said, like the Facebook problem, right, where there's just so much information out there, but is it really like new? Is it really elegant? Is it really diverse? Are we getting really radically different perspectives? I don't think.
Arash, 95% of people cannot produce what you're asking for. You're just being cruel here. No. We got to be humane. I don't believe in this sort of creative class fantasy. We're all going to be creators in the future and things.
I'm not saying everybody's going to create. No. What I'm saying is that there is an aspect of human nature that drives us towards creativity. I'm not saying everybody is creative. Everybody's an artist.
I think the community has certain archetypes that are driven towards art. I don't think people in general are artists at all. I think that's a lie.
Well, I think all I'm saying is that the drive for creativity comes from an innate human potential to create. I'm not saying everybody's creative.
Yeah. But create for whom? To what?
Well, maybe let Arash finish.
So that's the one part, right? The second part is that when you live in a society where only a tiny fraction of the population are even in a position to make decisions, are even in a position to think critically to actually engage in those decisions, right? When you have such a top-down structure in society, the entirety of our educational system, the entirety of all aspects of our society gears most people, right, to fit a slot available for them in society. So I believe in a good society when everybody has a chance to actually engage and participate in the decisions that affect their lives. Our educational system would be radically different, because then we would have to have a society where everybody has to be taught how to think critically, where everybody has to be taught how to make these important decisions for themselves, right? It's a very different society, but you can't have one without the other. So that's to that aspect. And then to the last point that you made about workplaces, studies have shown that most people hate their jobs. And when you look at why they hate their jobs, it's because it's so alienating, right? So I'm not saying that everybody's going to be an artist or everybody.
Wait a second. Unemployed people go and kill themselves. So you can't get. This is too naive. My argument is too naive. I think if you want to really create a humane society, you better have to understand archetypology, deep psychology, how people actually operate. So instead of us sitting here like some kind of snobbish, academically educated, upper middle class people telling people they should all be creative in the future, at the end of the day, we had that society. We had that society over the last 20 years. And finally, people got sick of it because even if they started creating this culture you're talking about, nobody was really interested because there was no audience for it. Because everybody was told to be on a stage and nobody was left in the audience. That is exactly why that society is important.
But that's where like diversity comes in. I mean, not everybody wants to be an actor. Not everybody wants to be everybody wants to be a singer.
There's this comedian, Tim Dillon. I think he made a very interesting point that today people get offended when they see somebody really talented on stage. Like when they see somebody like, back in the day, they used to have like, who was that guy who was, running up the wall? I'm thinking of Fred Astaire. So if they see Fred Astaire today, that's kind of offensive to him because I can't do that. So now they're used to seeing all these losers on stage that are slobs, just like a lot of people are. And they're like, oh, they're just like me. I can relate to them. And that's the kind of disappointing thing here. Like there seems to be an overabundance.
Yeah, but they will go back to talent generated content eventually. I wrote a paper in 2003 where I said that MySpace is never going to work. It was 400 million users at the time, and I said because it's all junk. And I worked at a record company. I said this is not going to work. So people started pretending that they liked each other. They started pretending by saying thank you for the ad, which is like telling a third person in the face that we don't know each other. We got to pretend we know each other to fool you into believing we're talented. This sort of talent war with no talent is exactly what happened. This is the slave mentality trying to be a master when it can't. And what happened then was that Facebook tragically repeated the same mistake. That's why Facebook is dying at the moment. It just became another MySpace. They never learned the lesson. They sold it to the telecom companies of the world that we don't have to pay for talent. We don't have to pay for content. We got to make everybody an artist, and everybody has got to be user-generated content in the future. And we were so sick of it when we arrived at 2018, 2019. So when the Corona year happened, we went to Netflix and preferred to be sedated, to have real talent telling us a story that really moved us, because we can't do that. Most people do not have artistic talent. And why do you tell them they're going to be diverse and creative when we're sick of that? We're sick of mediocrity. That's what our society is drowned in. And I think basic work in that sense is much better. Go out in the woods and learn how to hunt and, eat your own food or whatever.
Well, I think
it's a better reaction than producing ever more content in the world that's just sick of content.
But
I think
that's
what Arash was
too,
kind of saying too. Like, I think what Arash is saying is that from what I take it, you're not stating some kind of I don't know, fucking Chapo fantasy where everyone's going to be on UBI and they can be college pothead wastos, like the college dropout potheads like they are. But rather, if people were more connected to what they're doing, maybe not creative in terms of everyone is a creative person, everyone's an artist, but rather if people were more connected to their labor itself, that would produce better outcomes. Because there is something about physical labor, having, believe it or not, done construction. There is something about working with your hands and seeing the product being finished and knowing that people are going to find value in what you're doing. And I agree with you, Mr. Bart. I agree that, the fact that everyone has access to technology that can make the production of art, whether it's music or visual art or whatnot, easier. It hasn't produced a sum total of better artists, but it's produced a vast sea of mediocre people. But I don't know, I'm offended, because are you saying that all of those generic metalcore bands that came out of MySpace, that they were bad? You mean to tell me Jobs for a Cowboy wasn't that great?
Most of them were bad.
Yeah,
and I think that
yeah.
And I think that what you said with how how technology made the creating and creativity easier, I think it makes a lot of people lazy.
Yeah, that's true.
Creating things with your hands and putting so much heart and effort into it is something very sacred, and we don't really have that now.
But the fact
that brings, by the way, real quick, that brings up something that I think, Arash, you could feel me on this, which is when you were talking about people being unhappy in their job, I completely agree. But what I would also add there, and maybe this is a naive take, but if a lot of people were going to be a lot more like around nature, tending to a farm or something, breathing in the fresh air, then at least their body would feel physically better because they wouldn't be cooped up in a cubicle all day or whatever, or even in one of these out offices, the ones without the cubicle, but everybody's around you, all these people droning on about now with COVID, you don't have that open office anymore, like people are just indoors doing all this stuff, but that's pretty bad too. So it's like your instincts are not being worked out by having to figure out when the crops have to be, planted and all that stuff. So a lot of things go into that. So maybe people are missing a lot of that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely would agree with that, and just kind of engaging with your work and pride, like the feeling of pride, Gio mentioned, the feeling of pride from like a job well done, like, creating a bookshelf that you could actually like touch and feel and put your hands on. I mean, that's amazing, right? That's a good feeling. And I think that, I started by talking about human nature, and that's kind of where I derive some of my ideas, or a lot of my ideas. Well, another aspect of humanity is that we're a social species, right? So we innately seek that sort of social esteem from our peers. And of course, as Alexander mentioned, like, the social medias and the Facebooks and all them exploit that, right? They exploit that to maximize their profits, and they could care less about actually fulfilling our real human desires for camaraderie or for social esteem or for any of these things. They don't care about any of that. What they want to do is they want to exploit that need to reach out, to connect, and to feel connected to others, right? Exploit that for profit and for profit maximization. And that's exactly why we have, the shit that we have on Facebook and all these other social media sites.